Somehow, my daughters fell in love with Formula One. I don't know how or why, but I'm not arguing. They may not know wheel, but does anyone?
Hi, and welcome to We Don't Know Wheel F1. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Anne. We're two sisters who fell in love with Formula One and now make a podcast to force all our friends and family to listen to us talk about Formula One. Which this
Nicely
grief,
done, Anne.
thank you. I think that is the first time I've ever done that part of the intro.
A solid 8.5, I would say.
Okay, I'll take it. But our lovely sister Grace is off enjoying some time with our other sister and her two little children on a little beach vacation. So we have Sarah with us, and Shelly's back too.
Hi, everyone. This is more than I have anticipated my appearance on this podcast. So I am excited to be here, glad to step in where needed.
We're
What they
always happy
don't
to have
tell
you,
you
Shelly.
is after your first time as a guest, you're a
There's just
regular.
constant.
Permanent.
You want to come join the podcast? Well, especially because you're part of the big, or not the big, but the like official Formula One girls group chat. It always just gets discussed in the group chat.
Yes, I am in that. No, I'm glad to be here. You know, I've been helping kind of in the behind the scenes with some of the reels that you've kind of seen maybe out on the Instagram, the socials, and that's been pretty fun to put together. And so that's me. I have light touches around this podcast. So
excellent, Shelly.
I
very excellent.
Yeah, it's been kind of entertaining pulling them together, and like I've tested out different ways to do it, and AKA meaning like trying the AI, running it through like these AI programs that kind of spit out like this could be an interesting conversation to put as a reel, and they kind of like critique it, which is very interesting, but they always pull these very like punchy parts of this pod, which if you haven't seen, Sarah, you have been a main feature.
I'm very punchy.
Okay, so when I was editing the last one and I watched the segment of Sarah talking about Lando and Carlos and how they look at each other, and Oscar, I immediately was like, that needs to be real. And I texted Shelly saying that. And I'm curious, did AI pick that out as one of the segments that you should use?
Yes, it's been like the few that they pulled out were very interesting, just about, especially from the Monaco to the Canada Grand Prix. There's a few very interesting topics, but I don't really remember word for word, but yeah, they grab it. They're like, this is catchy. Let's start it here. And they kind of give like a title to it where it's like Oscar and Lando Love or something. And they like grade it, and it's very weird and interesting. But I kind of like
I think you need to keep those titles when you put them on Instagram.
Yeah, good captions, not. So yeah, Sarah's been a main feature, and she's getting a lot of screen time.
She is the quintessential youngest child entertainer.
Very quintessential, very pooky. Quintessential entertainer.
Love it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
should we move on to
Barcelona?
Barcelona?
Let's get it started.
For the fact that it was in Barcelona, a track which nobody is that excited about because it's just so well known for the drivers and the teams because they used to do testing there all the time, and the fact that every single driver finished. Surprisingly good race.
Yeah.
Like there were some real questions about who was going to win the race. and some very interesting strategy going on. And definitely points where like it was hard to figure out based off the strategy who was going to end up actually coming out better. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
So I'll be honest, I watched it live and
Me too.
it was a tinge early in the day. I don't want to out myself, but it was 8 a.m. and that's a little early for me on a Sunday. And I had to work late the night before. So I did wake up and watch it, but I was like maybe a little bit in and out. Because also it wasn't the most exciting race. It was interesting in terms of strategy, but it wasn't like things are happening, things are changing, crash, DNF. It was like, oh, when's Lando gonna pit? Later, not yet. Oh, Lando pitted. Oh, it didn't really work out for him. Like that was most of the race. Shelly, did you watch it live?
It's funny because I know we in the past have all watched it together, and we all live in different parts of the country. So we usually get on some sort of FaceTime call and we watch it live together. And this time we all kind of were watching it live, but we were not together.
It's too early in the day.
It was too early in the
be,
morning
like,
for anybody.
organizing.
Yeah, it's too early in the morning for anybody to send a text saying,
I just
who
want
else
to
is
say,
watching? You want to get on a FaceTime call?
for listeners who don't know, Shelly lives in California.
So she's 2 hours
So
ahead of us
we're
Minnesota
talking
girls.
6 a.m.
And I was up.
This is a real fan. Someone get her a paddock pass. Someone get this girl a press pass.
Yes. Well, so I'm gonna slightly plug in. Maybe I don't know the West Coast name, but there's like this West Coast F1 girly, I guess, online group that I've just come into, like I've just found them, and they do like certain, I think, watches here in LA, which I haven't gone to yet and I want to. But every week that there is like an early race, or I think like just a weird time race where they don't have it at the certain bar, they have a Discord thing open. And I've never done Discord, but I think it's like in a similar vein of like the girls are up at 5 or 6 in the morning, maybe cameras are on, but we're all watching together. So I will say people are doing it. And
Yeah.
so it was just funny because we were all kind of watching it live, which that's how I kind of prefer. So but I think similar to Sarah, when I was watching it live, I was kind of seeing how, okay, yeah, this is not from the last race. In Canada, I'm like, this is actually pretty tame in comparison of what's going on. And that kind of put into perspective for me. I'm like, oh, I actually do think Canada was like this very interesting race this year, which I don't know if I put those things together. I think there's just a lot going on being in attendance in general, but now kind of coming back to how I regularly consume races, I'm seeing like, oh yeah, okay, I haven't rewatched it on F1 TV, but like Canada was actually, there's a lot going on.
And I do think it would have felt much more dramatic watching it on F1 TV compared to being at the race, because we didn't really see many of the crashes very well, even on the like replay screen. They didn't. They would show all of them maybe once or twice, and that was kind of it. Whereas if you're watching the like actual broadcast of it, there's just like kind of constant recaps of that as they're going behind the safety car and everything else is happening.
Yeah. So definitely a different pace, but I still found it very enjoyable. I took in a lot of, I don't know why, but the strategy stuff hit me like in a good way this time around, where I was actually following, and Ruth, who was, kind of narrating the different tires, I was just like eating it all up and being like, oh, I understand this, and this is so fun and interesting. So that was very entertaining for me this race time.
Yeah. I think I'll speak for all of the girls in our personal group chat that we are all like fully obsessed with Ruth Buscombe and just like so love everything that she's been doing
Mhm.
with the team, the F1 TV team. So good, so interesting, so much insight. She's like just so incredibly smart and like really good at communicating these
Mhm.
like complicated concepts in a really clear way. It makes it super like much more easy to understand, I think.
And also just like
And I think that was part
super,
of the reason why I felt a little bit more like Shelley was saying, like I
Engaged.
understood the
yeah.
strategy during this race.
Yeah, she also seems like super personable and funny and just like a great person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to tell your
I
story, Sarah?
I mean, I don't want to brag. I follow her on Instagram and she posted something about, I think it was a post with a picture of her on the podium, and then they had all the like technical graphs behind her with, you know, the charts and things, whatever. I don't really fully understand what it is, but she did talk through it a little bit, I think on Thursday or Friday. And she posted a picture of this, and there was like all these comments. I've never seen a bad comment on any of her posts, which is amazing. I love it. And I commented this like, thank you so much for what you're doing. It's so fun. I feel like I'm learning so much, this little comment. And then I checked a few days later my Instagram and she liked it.
So Sarah's
Yeah,
basically a celebrity now.
she is my most famous
I
friend.
wouldn't go that far.
You are my most famous friend.
Here's
Just
my
blowing
pitch
up.
for Ruth Buscombe. Ruth, I think I think she should be doing commentary for the F1 Academy races. I've heard a lot of buzz around social media. I have to admit, I haven't been paying as much attention to the F1 Academy stuff as I want to be. I want to watch the races from this weekend, and I haven't. That's my confession. But I've heard that the commentary is not very good, and that the commentators are like, don't seem super interested in what's going on at the F1 Academy races or aren't super knowledgeable about what's going on. I would love to see Ruth doing commentary for that. I think it would be really interesting.
Yes. And
And
come on our podcast too.
That's what I thought you were doing.
It
So I was
sounds
like, hi, Ruth, are you listening?
come on our
Join us.
podcast is the hard sell. No, come on our podcast is the obvious sell. Do the F1 Academy commentary is what would really be truly interesting. But she should come on our podcast.
Gotta pitch it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the F1 Academy, we have our first Haas winner, I guess.
Yes, let's
Right?
talk about that. Let's
Yes.
not talk about the F1 race. Let's talk about the
Chloe
F1 Academy.
Chambers.
Yeah. So
Is that
Chloe
her name? Chloe
Chambers.
Chambers?
For Haas. An American driver. How cool is that?
Guess what, Logan Sargent girlies? You've got a new gal to cheer for. Because also, I just saw this before we started recording that Logan Sargent is leaving Williams. Anybody else see this? This maybe is unconfirmed.
It's a
This might be
rumor.
It's
very much
unconfirmed.
rumor mill.
What I was seeing is that he like is kind of relaunching his brand and like making an app or something. And so people are speculating this is part of the like separating from Williams process. But he's doing it because either he signed with another team or the speculation that he signed with an IndyCar team.
What other
Which is
team
more
do you
likely.
think would sign Logan Sargent? Okay, so
Haas?
regardless, I know the Logan girlies are going to
That'll
come
be
for me.
clipped.
I fear the Logan girlies like I fear Swifties. I will say it.
I have my sorry. My crew neck. Okay.
I think
They are
Logan
scary and aggressive and
is an
American, and they are near us. They're in our homes, they're in our schools. Okay?
Logan is a very nice person. I don't
I
think he's been
agree.
driving well enough
That's all we're
keep a
gonna
Formula
say.
One
That's it.
seat. That's it.
I'm just saying, if something tragic happens and he's not available to cheer for next year, not you know what I mean. There's always Chloe. Is that
There
right?
you go.
Chloe?
Chloe
If we need an
Chapers.
American driver, let's cheer for Chloe. Thank you. I rest my case. And she drives for Haas. It's perfect.
Match made.
So
Yep.
American.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. It was, how strange was it? Did you guys see the podium? It was very strange to hear
For which
The
one?
American anthem.
our national
Oh.
anthem.
I was like, wait, because there's some other kind of discussions happening around the podium that like I've been seeing conversations of like, this is what we mean when we mean, I think, because so the three winners right from the F1 Academy were up on their podium, and then I think the third place winner, and I can't remember her name, she kind of stepped to the side, and there's a pause, and then they, I guess, sprayed the champagne bottles, and it came to light, oh, the third place winner is a Muslim, and that is, just not something they partake in with the alcohol and all that stuff. And it was like, oh, this is like, I don't know, there, I guess the conversation that was brought up was like, this is like important too, like we're just discussing around the small moment of taking a pause, letting the person go, and then kind of popping the champagne. And so that's like kind of what I thought you were talking about, but no, you were talking about the American
Yeah. That is
music.
sweet to hear though.
It is.
I wonder if when they do podiums in, I think specifically like the Middle East, but like Muslim majority countries,
They have
they do the
non-alcoholic.
celebration.
Mhm.
Yeah, with something
Yes.
non-alcoholic. It feels
Yeah.
like
It's a bummer
it
they
would
don't
be not
have
that hard to
those.
keep that on hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Right?
they will now.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be a cool thing to see.
For sure.
Mhm.
Speaking of
Yeah.
theater series, did you guys see that Juan Manuel Correa, the guy who was in the accident with Antoine Hubert, got his first podium in F2 after like making his comeback over what, 5 years since that accident?
Wow. No, I didn't
Did not
see
know
that at
that.
all.
Well, and he got one podium and then he got a penalty. And so then he had to drop down to 8th. But then in the other race, he had a podium that actually stuck.
Oh, that's incredible.
But yeah, just, I mean, simply the fact that he's come back is incredible. Like he almost lost his foot and is like, yeah, many, many surgeries on his leg.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, it makes me think of Roman. I'm like, I know he's not in F1 anymore, but the fact that he can still race.
He got
Just
4th in
mentally.
Laguna Seca this weekend.
Okay, let's talk about it. Love.
That's all I know.
I miss
Well,
Roman.
Let me tell you, I had dinner at mom and dad's house last night, our mom and dad's house. And after dinner, they sat down and dad turned on the highlights from Laguna Seca. And that's when I got up and I drove home. But
He was telling me I need to
maybe
watch
we
them.
could have
And then
him
he
on.
said they're 30 minutes long.
I do think that maybe we should have a segment where dad just comes on to report about what's happening in IndyCar.
Yes, that's a great idea too.
Just so we stay well-rounded.
We also just haven't had dad on in a long time, and we should change that.
Yeah, we should. Well, they don't watch full races anymore. They watch
True.
the 7-minute highlights.
Spoiler.
Not even the half hour. Not even race in 30. Can't be bothered. What happened in
And
qualifying? Or what were you gonna say, Shelley?
no, we should start with qualifying. I think
Yeah.
I watched it, I think, when it was happening, and then I kind of rewatched it today, but it was kind of a bummer seeing how Ferrari was doing so well, and I was kind of excited for Carlos to maybe, his last year in Ferrari, he's at his home
I wanted him to at
race.
least have a chance.
I wanted to see that, and it did not
Yeah.
happen, and it kind of actually blew up. But the quality in itself was, yeah, it was very interesting. My top people, well, one of them didn't do that great, so I'm like, I don't know where everyone else was.
Should we get into the Carlos and Charles of it all?
Was that during quali? No, that was during the
No,
race.
No.
race.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
I will say
What's your take, Anne?
Charles's comments after the race were interesting.
What did he say? Something about
Careful.
Carlos wants to do something spectacular?
That's exactly
home
what he
race.
said as part of his overall comments.
Mhm.
It came down to he thought that the pass that Carlos made was not exactly fair. And he was also unhappy that Carlos had tried to pass in the first place. Because he was saying that like they had both been told before the race that they should be like protecting their tires and breaking them in gently at the beginning. And Carlos just saw an opportunity to overtake him and did it. Which I think that Carlos was completely within his rights. Like there had not been team orders given that he should not be taking over Charles. I thought it was for the most part pretty fair overtake.
I will say, here's what I'll say.
Go.
If the cards were reversed, if this was the Monaco race and Carlos started 6th and Charles started 7th, it was somewhere around thereabouts, right? And
It was
Charles
5th and 6th, I think.
did a similar move on the first corner in Monaco. I just feel like
But it wasn't on the
drama
first
wouldn't
corner.
have
It was
been
on like the
drama-ing.
second or third lap when DRS had been enabled.
Whatever. I don't care. It just feels like, would Charles not have done the exact same thing? Would he not? You can't tell
I
me
agree. Yeah.
that he would not be. If you're not going for the inside line, you're no longer a racing driver. Racing is rubbing. It just feels like, I saw other people commenting this. Carlos was like so supportive of Charles in Monaco on his win. He was like, I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to get Charles on the top of that podium. If something horrible happens, sure, I'd love to win, but it's not about me this week.
But to be fair, it's a completely different position when they're 5th and 6th compared to 1st and 3rd. But
yeah, okay, I want to hear what Shelley has to say.
I do hear what you're saying.
I'm trying to have a balanced approach coming from the Charles camp. And I agree, like the order, it's a different track compared to Monaco versus Barcelona, and the different positions, right? I guess 1st and 3rd versus 5 and 6, I think Anne said. So I think it's multi-layered, a little bit different of a situation. I think Charles came in being like, let's score some points for Ferrari. I also acknowledge and love that it's Carlos's home race, but I think with how it kind of happened, yeah, I think I could see where Charles is coming from. He's like, he hurt our team's race or our team's chance to do better in this race. And I think Carlos has had a lot on his plate, and he was not only mad at Charles this race. There's a lot of other people that he was beefing with. And so all I'm gonna say is that I understand that, Carlos was very openly like, I'm supporting Charles in this. But the circumstances were a little bit different. So that's sort of my take for the Spanish Grand Prix. And I'm hoping that I'm just hoping for a good season and that they end on a happy note, which don't know if that will happen. So
Can I ask you 2 follow-up questions?
okay.
Number 1, how do you think that Charles's race could have ended like with him in a higher up position if Carlos hadn't passed him? Because from what I saw, I never really seemed like the Ferraris had enough pace to pass the Mercedes in front of them.
I guess I was sort of calling back to their free practice right this weekend, which they did F1 or P1 and P2, I think, in the last free practice. So I kind of felt like that was setting them up in a good position, but it was once qualifying kind of got around, it kind of went downhill. And not that I think he would have won, but I think I didn't look at the reports of the car analytics after the fact, but he was driving with a damaged car. So I'm like, yeah, I think maybe could have moved up a few spots, but they didn't. And now it's all out war at Ferrari.
I think this is where I disagree with you. I don't think that Charles' car was actually that damaged to the point that he was going that substantially slower, where like he was faster overall compared to Carlos by the end of the race. And I don't think he would have ever had enough pace to get past any of the people in front of him. But we can
I'm very
agree to
uncomfortable
disagree.
with the energy we've created in the studio.
Agree to disagree. No, I feel like I'm trying to be neutral, but I have seen some people go out crazy for Charles, and I'm like, you don't need that like energy.
Yeah, I do think when all is said and done, like, your teammate is your biggest rival. They're always going. I think people forget that they are racing against each other on track. People get caught up in the like fantasy of the Charlos edits, and like they are trying to beat each other, and they can still be friendly off track, but like, they're competitive as a job. You can see it when they do all their stupid little media video competition thingies. Like, they're competitive, and when they're doing that, they're having fun being competitive, and when they're driving, it's like literally the job to be super competitive. And then it's like, yeah, of course they're going to have words after something like that happens, and it's also their job to like never admit defeat basically and be like, no, I was right, he was wrong. They all do it. Literally every driver does this when they have contact on track. And I feel like when it's your teammate, it's a little extra dramatic. Like, I don't know, maybe some teams are worse than others. It seems like the Alpine drivers have some actual beef. But like, I think that this is real Charles and Carlos like beef? No. And also it doesn't matter because they're teammates. They're not BFFs. I said what I said. It's true.
There's going to be some really juicy Alpine Drive to Survive episodes this season. Because
honestly,
everything's
I hope
such
not.
A hot mess.
They gave us 2 last season. It was too many. I just
You're right, Sarah. You are so right.
I don't know why they think that Alpine drama is like the most interesting drama.
Maybe
I think there's some like real behind the scenes stuff happening between Pierre and Esteban.
Here's what I'll say for Netflix. I feel like Netflix is always trying to like stir up. Obviously, it's a show, right? They're like trying to paint these things. People get mad at like them creating drama between like Danny and Max in season 1, Danny and Lando and Carlos was a really bizarre one. And I feel like the drivers are all laughing at it. But I feel like it's a real missed opportunity to not make an episode about like teammates who really like each other. Like, make an episode about friendship. You know who would love that? All of the female F1 fans that watch Drive to Survive. And most of the men, probably. That's what I'll say. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Petition to have Ruth Buscombe on Drive to Survive this year.
I'm sure she'll be on it. They have enough
hope
randos that
so.
it's like,
I don't
let's
know.
actually give some time to someone who actually should get it.
Let's give some time to Lando Norris, though. Because that's what this race was really all about, in my opinion. Driver of the day. And rightfully so.
Yeah, no,
No one cares? He got pole. He got pole.
he got
He should have
pole.
won too, Sarah.
Oh, Anne.
I'm
Oh,
sorry. I'm
that's
sorry.
in poor taste.
No. I let me try that again. After watching him after the race, I felt really bad for him
It
because
was a tough watch.
it was because I'm sure he basically knew as soon as he got passed by George and Max, like, I'm not gonna get the chance unless there's a safety car and something dramatically changes to actually win this
Yeah.
race. And that was sad.
That's racing, buddy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
George's little stunt in the beginning, that was actually pretty
That
good.
was exciting.
That was impressive. That was fun.
You know what?
One of the
I
most
was
fun parts of the
sleepy.
race.
Woke
I
me
woke up.
right up.
Yes.
I said, "Who is that?"
A new
Who is
driver
that?
for Mercedes. Lewis. So the
Speaking of
the
Mercedes and
top part
Lewis,
for me, the top part for me this race was Lewis back on the podium.
Oh, what a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
so fun. But
He really
speaking of
seemed bad to be
Lewis
back in form.
and Mercedes, well, okay,
Yeah.
so did you guys hear about the
Email.
yes.
Yeah. You want to describe for the fans?
The email was
Anonymous.
try to make
email.
sure I describe it as accurately as possible. It's saying that Mercedes had not only not been giving him good strategies, but was accusing them of almost like being manipulative and like
Almost
psychologically
negligent.
damaging or negligent
Oh,
towards Lewis.
okay. I heard like life and death,
Yeah. Dangerous.
Yes.
which is crazy.
Which the fact that Lewis had a very good weekend this weekend is, I feel like, almost going to feed into those theories of Mercedes saw this email and saw the reaction online and said, oh boy, I guess we better treat Lewis better now so the fans don't get mad.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
would guess that it's
that's
all
certainly the
just
picture that's painted.
a coincidence of like Mercedes has just happened to be getting better the last few races, which they have legitimately been much better on the last few races compared
Yeah,
to
I mean George
the
is
first
also much faster the last few races,
Mhm.
so that doesn't feel like a Lewis specific thing.
Mhm.
But he did get, it seems like he got the more favorable strategy this race
Lewis.
of the two. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because George got the hard tires after the second pit stop, and then his race was like
I mean,
kind of screwed.
Yeah, George and Carlos were put on the hard tires and their
Mhm.
teammates were put on the
Yeah.
softs, and their teammates passed both of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you guys notice that Checo had a 3-stop strategy?
Yeah, I was keeping an eye on that.
Yeah.
I've seen some pretty incredible memes with like Checo signs Red Bull and now he's like just coasting.
He's coasting.
And I'm like, oh, 2-year contract.
as if they
now
wouldn't
he's
drop
coasting.
him literally
Whenever they want.
with whenever they want. Whenever
Yeah.
they want. Well, it
Well,
seems
and
like they used to do that all the time, and then like suddenly Red Bull's gotten all warm and fuzzy. Like,
I think Checo
think
brings
about
in
like
a lot of
2019,
money.
2020. They were dropping drivers left and right, like constantly.
Yeah,
And now
but
they're just like cool with it. It feels like there's something else going on here.
yeah, but Checo fans were not super happy with that strategy. But I feel like a lot of it is that he used like every single soft tire he had in qualifying in order to actually make it to Q3.
You
By
said
the
it, not
skin of
us.
his teeth.
And so
Oh.
then that just doesn't leave many options because you can use all of those tires you use in qualifying in the race, but all of them it's going to be like 4 laps shorter for the length that they can actually last decently. But anyways, I also noticed as a Checo fan, he passed Pierre on literally the last lap of the race. He had been in 9th. He ended in 8th. It was never talked about and never shown. Like I have yet still to see a video of him overtaking Pierre on the last lap.
That's really funny.
Yeah,
Okay,
you didn't hear anything about it.
speaking of, Grace made a comment when we were talking on the phone this week that they kept showing Carlos on track like during the race, and then the commentators, because we were listening to the international commentators, my preference, and she was
Really?
like, they would cut to Carlos and then they don't say anything because they're like, what are we supposed to talk about? And she was presuming maybe it was like the Spanish commentators were talking about Carlos's race, and then the F1 TV commentators were like, we don't have anything to say about this guy. He's in 7th. I didn't notice this. This is secondhand
Interesting.
from Grace, but it is interesting. Like, if the local, obviously the local commentators are gonna focus a bit more on the
Mhm.
local hometown hero, but seems like that
Yeah.
doesn't really transfer over. It does feel like they barely talked about Carlos during the broadcast,
With
which,
the exception of like when he passed Charles and then when Charles passed him.
Yeah. yeah. But his
no.
grandstand was popping off.
So
I will
fun.
say, when we were in Canada, and Grace kept making comments about the Lance Stroll grandstand. I was kind of like, oh, it's just another grandstand. Like,
Carlos
do
knows how
people
to do
really
it
buy
right.
tickets just to be in a driver's grandstand? And then I saw the footage from this week from the 55 grandstand, and man, yeah, it was compelling evidence. I'm like, ooh. Literally just a sea of red and yellow and 55 flags and Spanish flags. And yeah, I think they all got merch and like food tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And Carlos showed up.
Hospitality counts for something.
Carlos showed up and he was shooting t-shirts out of a t-shirt gun. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
love
No,
this.
if I was going to Barcelona, I would love to be his grandstand, but I think every year it sells out within like 5 minutes of the tickets being
Yeah.
posted.
I
Because
think
he
you're
does
right.
really affordable tickets. And there's only a
Who would've
set number
thought?
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like if they made all the tickets to the races more affordable, they would all sell out.
Yeah, should we
talk about Silverstone?
Silverstone? Where
Shelly said that she had an advertisement for like really cheap tickets to the race because they're not selling. And she almost bought one.
how cheap was cheap, Shelly?
So a little bit a different situation, Sarah. It was someone who was reselling their ticket for what they bought.
Oh, that's what it was. Thank you.
Okay.
They were in the Lewis grandstand, which apparently is across from the paddocks. I'm like, for Silverstone, and I'm like, that is a dream. And it was like, I think 700 pounds and then 900 USD.
Grandstand across from the pit straight.
Yeah, I
pretty
know.
Incredible.
I definitely checked plane
That's
tickets, so
much money.
it just wasn't doable. I just had to, like, what if? So I'm not
Here's my
going,
question.
but
How many driver grandstands do you think there are at Silverstone? Like, does Lando have a grandstand or is it just Lewis?
Ooh,
We don't know. We're
that's
bad.
an interesting
fans.
question, Sarah.
Yeah.
I have no
Sure, there
idea.
is
Does
one.
George Russell have a grandstand?
I have zero clue.
We don't know this.
Okay.
Don't.
Does
We don't
Fernando
know
Alonso
Wheel.
have a grandstand? Doesn't seem like it. He
Oh,
should
I have no
though.
idea.
He should. I wonder
Yeah.
if the driver has to like sponsor their own grandstand. Like if that's a driver initiative.
I
It's
think it
that
is a
seems
driver
crazy, right?
initiative.
Really?
Like, I think to some degree the driver has to organize it for sure.
Organize.
Yeah.
Pay someone to organize. I'm being honest. I'm just being honest.
No, I think you're
Yeah.
right. You're totally right. No, I do think it was ridiculous that there were commentators who were saying that people were not getting tickets to Silverstone because Max is winning everything. When we've had 4 other drivers win a race this year.
Yeah.
Sorry, 3 other drivers.
3 other
And
drivers. Yeah.
GA tickets are like $600-700 or pounds for
Which
GA.
is more. Yeah.
Yeah, which is like
The pound is apparently quite strong right now. Or am I wrong? Never mind. Cut that out.
I couldn't even understand
I'm
what you
gonna
said.
I
clip
redact
that.
Redact
I'm
that.
gonna clip it. I'm gonna clip it. False fake news here right on the pod.
Oh my god. Yeah, what's the next race on our little triple header?
Austria, the land of track limits.
Orange Army?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
Red Bull Austrian?
Yes.
Redact that.
It's it's the Dutch and Austrian national anthem that play for Max every time, Sarah.
Right. Yeah, I knew that.
Yes.
I knew that.
No, it's gonna be a sea of orange.
Yeah. Mhm.
Which, oh my gosh, I feel like I've seen a meme about like, so the Dutch and Austrian soccer teams were playing each other in the Euros. So many memes about Formula One fans like having PTSD from hearing those national anthems and then hearing
that's
them at the soccer
funny.
game.
I thought you were going to start talking about the Dutch politicians. You guys get these
No.
videos? Oh my
No.
God. Okay. This is neither here nor there, but about once a month, I scroll on my Instagram and I get a video that's a ship like video of these 2 Dutch politicians, the head of the party and somebody else. And it's like these 2 young guys in their 30s. And it's all these slow-mo clips of them like looking at each other longingly, looking at each other in elevators, looking at each other across the parliament floor. It's incredible. And the best part is the politicians are in on the joke. They follow all of their little fan accounts. They think it's so funny. They're both like happily married. And they're like, we've been professional friends for years. We think this is hilarious. Truly, only the Dutch, you know?
No, I have not seen that, Sarah.
Okay, well, next time
seen-
I get one, I will be sending it. I'll be sending it to do the rounds.
That's okay. That's okay. I think we've talked a little bit about some of the videos you've put in the chat and how your algorithm is very interesting. So this just confirms that.
Every time I send a weird video, the algorithm gets a little weirder. That's on curating an algorithm that works for you. Send what you want to get.
See a video on Twitter today that was an advertisement for Oslo of just like their like tourism board of, but it was this guy who is from Oslo talking about how it's like not a real city and you can get everywhere so quickly, and just like the most kind of like dry sense of humor of everything he was saying. It's like, oh, this sounds like a lovely city to visit, but he's saying it as a bad thing. Most like Norwegian or like Scandinavian tourism advertisement I've ever seen. It was very funny.
Yeah. No, I'm happy Lewis was back on the podium for this past race.
Yeah.
All kind of felt right in the world. I miss it. I miss seeing Lewis up there, and
That's
some people
right.
disagree.
And he
That's
seemed
right.
so happy and relaxed. Like him laying down on the couch was hilarious, and he was joking around with Max and seemed super happy. And yeah,
I agree.
good vibes
I
all
agree.
around there.
Just everyone getting along, just good vibes, good feelings. Don't go near the Ferrari garage though.
Don't go near Lando.
Here's a real question.
I
Do
know.
you think
Oh, Lando.
do you think that there were any cameras or microphones that picked up what Carlos and Charles were saying to each other after the race?
If there
Someone's
were, we
got
would
it.
already know, unless it's Netflix, in which case we'll know in about 9 months.
You didn't really see any
Right?
Netflix like booms or cameras in the shot.
I didn't
But that
either.
doesn't mean they didn't get it.
Well, it also feels like the time when cameras aren't around so much. Like I feel like there's not a lot of there is like social media footage, but I feel like the Netflix cameras are like not really usually in that area, the little celebration area. Maybe I'm wrong.
But
But just thinking
it was
back
like
to
by where they
seasons.
get weighed after the race.
Yeah, I know.
So they
That's
have
like,
they sometimes have cameras there. Like that's where Max and Esteban had their fight.
oh, you know what? That's a good point. Okay, yeah, I'll give that to you.
I need a recap.
That's where all the
on
post-race fights happen. You
Honestly,
gotta get your camera in there.
Obviously, like all of this Charles Carlos stuff is like drama for this season, but I almost feel like it's pretty tame in
I
comparison to
agree.
like
I think it's pretty tame.
I think about Seb and when he like had put, I think, was it the P1 to his
in
own,
front
I'm
of
like,
his car.
that is, I'm like, that was crazy. This is pretty
Give us that. That's what we want.
And I do think that like Carlos and Charles were genuinely annoyed with each other. I also think like they're gonna be fine. They are not gonna hate each other.
My boys could never.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying they're both somewhat mature, reasonable people, and they're not gonna start a feud over this.
Okay, wait. Okay. Speaking of mature, reasonable people, here's my last thing, and then we can wrap this up. The letter that I think Anne sent today from the people who are concerned about Charles's dog's health and safety.
So insane.
Leo.
I mean, I don't want to like mock animal rights people because I think it's a noble, cause. But he's like a multimillionaire, and this has got to be the most pampered dog in the world.
Yes.
Am I wrong?
And also,
it's a lot of plane travel, sure.
And you can leave a puppy by itself in a crate for a while, and then you come home and you take care of it, and it's fine.
I didn't actually read the letter. I just kind of got like, this letter's out there. It sounds like you guys read it in depth, and that is
it's only one page.
It was talking about like the animal cruelty laws in France because they apply in Monaco.
Yeah.
Now that could be like brought to the police to force them to rehome Leo.
It's fake, everyone. It's fake. You wish you had this dog's life.
Yeah, exactly.
We all wish
no one
we
ever
were
says
Leo.
anything about Roscoe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or these children that get dragged along to races. These wags. Look, justice for the wags. They need food and water. They need constant attention. Well, it was a pretty fun race, though.
It was.
Wasn't it?
I'm looking forward to Austria, where I'm gonna bet Max is gonna win again.
I'm gonna bet Lewis Hamilton wins.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah.
throw it in there. I'm hoping by this next race or soon we get some confirmation on where Carlos is going, because I really would like to see how things are going to shake out. I want to know that. So
yeah, I want silly season. Give it to me, Rachel.
And if he goes to Alpine, good for him, I guess.
No, I want good for him.
Whatever choice he needs to make, he needs to do it now. That's all I'm going to say. I'm rushing
my
him.
bet is that it's like Williams, Audi, Alpine.
Okay. Who's to say? Who's to say?
Who knows?
What's the point of even guessing?
Or maybe there's going to be a shock twist and he goes to Red Bull.
He goes to Indy. Be crazy.
I mean, certainly crazier things have happened.
Honestly, I feel like a bigger question is, like, so I genuinely think Carlos going to Williams is going to be announced sometime within the next 2 weeks.
She's calling it.
The question is Logan going to like immediately announce a move to Indycar, or is he still going to try and get a Formula One seat?
I've sent him away to Indy. He is now in Indy in my mind.
Shelly's
I kind of agree. You know what? I think he's gonna
be
do
good.
Indy.
Yeah,
he's gonna be good.
I think he would
Indy.
do well in Indy. I think he would have a lot of fun in Indy.
He's gonna
Poor
live
guy.
his best life there, and it's all gonna be.
Indy will be
for
good
him.
for him.
I mean, Ramon lives in.
He couldn't shake it in F1.
Ramon lives in, I think, Miami. He and Logan can become good buddies.
I miss Ramon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, Logan. And bye, everyone. Arrivederci. To you, Logan. All right.
Yeah, arrivederci.
Well, we will see you all after Austria. Thank you for joining. And like, comment, subscribe. Enjoy Shelly's reels that we'll be putting out. And yeah. See you later, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.